Hi, Velvet Al here, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Titties and Kitties, a true crime podcast. I am once again in my ever eternal journey to try to become an influencer. So I was thinking, what are the most popular things on the internet? Well, true crime podcast, cats, and boobs. Unfortunately, I could not find a woman willing to record this podcast for me and show her boobs, so you're stuck with my titties. Sorry. Here's my co host, Doodles, who is probably the only one of my cats who's going to be willing to sit long enough to do an entire episode. This is my first foray into doing true crime, and I'm going to be reading off my computer screen, so my eyes are probably going to be like all over the place. I'm impressed by some of the other true crime podcasts, especially this one that my wife watches where she does makeup while doing the podcast. Because that's kind of insane, because it doesn't seem like she's reading off of a screen or anything. So she's memorized all the details and reciting it while doing makeup as well. Like, I'm not that good at multitasking. But, so, let's get on. I've got the titties. I got a kitty. Now here's the true crime. October 6, 1988, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The body of postal worker Carla Childs had been found in the basement of the home of a local pastor. She had been staying there while trying to sort through domestic problems. Her body was completely naked. The base of her skull had been crushed in, and a used condom had been found inside her vagina. Due to some tears in the anal opening, the pathologist concluded that there had been an attempt at anal sex, in addition to the vaginal intercourse that was being treated as a rape. Speaking to eyewitnesses and suspects, the investigators were able to piece together a timeline of Carla's final hours. She had started the night at a local bar, being affectionate with a man named Robert Cougar Foster. During the night, Carla's ex-lover, Steve Belker, a former boxer, appeared at the bar. Belker had a history of threatening Carla, and this night was no different. After some arguing at the bar, Carla and Cougar headed back to the pastor's home, and Belker followed shortly after. The pastor was still home when Belker arrived. According to the pastor, Belker was yelling, "You got something that belonged to me. Give it to me. I want it now." And Carla was yelling back, "I don't have nothing that belonged to you." The pastor went over in an attempt to calm things down, at which point Belker decided to leave. The pastor would leave later that evening, but before he did, another gentleman arrived, by the name of Homer Argonaut, who went down to the basement, where Carla and Cougar were at. According to Cougar, Carla and Homer had an argument at the top of the stairs while he was down in the basement. Cougar believed the argument was over a cocaine deal. Carla threatened to call 911, and Homer threatened to tip the post office to her drug use. Carla called anyhow and began to ask for help. But Cougar also dialed 911, telling the operator to cancel the dispatch and that it was just a lover's quarrel. Due to the police being shorthanded that night, the dispatch was canceled. At this point, Cougar claims Homer hit Carla, which sent her down the stairs and then promptly left. Cougar's first instinct was to leave, but found himself unable to just leave her there, so he carried Carla to the bed and took her clothes off, in order to help her breathe easier. He claimed that she was still alive when he left. The problem with Cougar's events of the evening is that as the police interrogated him, his story kept changing. He went from accusing Homer of the assault to fingering Steve Belker as the culprit. Additionally, the autopsy did not find bruises or wounds that would indicate being pushed down from the top of the stairs. But the wounds on the back of her head were consistent with someone being pulled down from behind. Another change in Cougar's testimony is that he later admitted to attempting to have sex with Carla after he disrobed her and put her on the bed. But he says he was unable to get aroused due to the gurgling sounds she was making. Cougar's DNA was not found in the vaginal swabbing, but a jury determined there was enough circumstantial evidence to find him guilty of rape, as well as involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, in regards to the signs of attempted anal sex. The jury, however, was unable to reach a verdict on the murder charge. The charge was later refiled, and as part of a plea bargain, Cougar pleaded guilty to one count of manslaughter, with his sentence to be served concurrently with the others. What did you think about that, Doodles? Yeah, I'm making that cute little voice after reading a serious story. 'Cause it's so wonderful. Um, yeah, I find it interesting. Like, keep in mind, this is like late 80s in Pennsylvania. So anal sex was a crime of deviant sexual intercourse. Like, it was a separate charge from the rape. So it was called involuntary deviant sexual intercourse because it was, involuntary. But still, that's kind of interesting that back then, like, anal sex was a crime. So, just one note: a couple of the names, Steve Belker and Homer Argonaut, have been changed to protect the innocent, much like the old Dragnet episodes. If you're upset about that, don't blame me. Got this story out of a old true crime detective magazine. Because I was into true crime back in the day, before everyone else became a big thing. No, my old stepdad used to have like just piles of these true crime magazines that would just give like all these stories of true crime, obviously. So, like, I used to read them because I thought I was going to be a detective writer. And so I thought, like, oh, well, what better place to get ideas for stories than actual crimes? Do you have anything to add, Doodles? Apparently, hitting me in the face is what he has to add. So, I hope you enjoyed it. If people like it, I will try to do more. If not, this goes down into one of my other failed attempts at becoming relevant.